Good morning on this Monday morning, a shortened week. It's a holiday week. We got Christmas coming up. We obviously got an expiration cycle as well. And when we look back at last week, I'll tell you what, the amazing part of last week was the new highs that we just were setting time and time again. And I see Q&A already popping up, and you guys are more than welcome to throw out some questions, and I'll do my very best to answer them. But I know how busy everybody is today based upon what today's market's doing. But looking at the last week, we hit the highest levels last week in the NASDAQ, and it seemed like it was day after day after day, and it was impressive to watch those moves. We also closed on the highest levels for the Dow. You look at the S&P, another incredible run. On the Dow, we had 30,300. It's just impressive how much running to the upside that we were getting, and what was propelling us to the upside, what was sort of fueling what was moving us to the upside, and the shifting that we had there. And I think that's why it's been essentially a pretty healthy move really to the upside. Now, Bitcoin also new highs. So almost everywhere you look, you're seeing new highs, not in gold, not in silver, but Bitcoin and then the markets themselves. A lot of people talking about small caps and shifting over into that direction as well. Just so much going on in the markets. The volatility index was fairly flat throughout the week, where we were trading somewhere, call it between 21 and 23. So it started to get a little boring. Not so boring today, but we'll get into that in just 1 second. So materials last week on Friday, that was one of the names, or one of the only areas actually, that was providing us with a little bit of green, a little bit of upside. It was Dow, it was Eastman, it was Gardot, it was Vale, which we continue to talk about. It seems like almost every day the unusual option activity has been there. It seems time and time and time again. I know I discussed this on the halftime report last week, and how many times that has hit, and that upside move that we've had, and new highs there as well, 52-week highs there as well. We had some green in healthcare. Biotech was a little bit stronger, but then the pressure was on. It was on energy, down about 1.5%. You had tech down about 0.5%. You had the financials down about 1%. And that was across the board. It's the same names that I'll be talking about today that are actually moving to the upside, and the financials just is that area. By the way, the volume, yes, I bring it up all the time, but how about 42.5 million contracts on Friday? It was a monster day. And last week, a monster week. And we were talking about that, how impressive it was. Now, it'll be interesting to see in this shortened week, in this holiday week, what will volumes look like? My guess is, based upon all the previous holidays before this year, and going through this pandemic and everybody being at home and all of the activity that we are seeing in the markets, it likely will not feel like it does normally in that holiday season. I think we'll probably continue to see some of these volumes. We certainly are starting out that way as well. Tesla, 2.5 million contracts on Friday. Apple, just under 2 million contracts Friday. It really dropped after that when you look over at NIO with about 800,000 contracts, but NIO continues to hit. Matter of fact, we're seeing a little bit of unusual option activity in there today as well. So how did we start off today? Well, there's some pressure on the markets. And why was there pressure on the markets? We actually initially, off of that news that they've come up with some stimulus package, $900 billion stimulus package, that we looked like the markets were going to be up a couple of hundred points. Well, then you get fast forward from last week into this week. And as we start off this week, suddenly the concerns start to really pop up about COVID and this strain in the UK, and the concerns that people have there, all rightfully so, considering the fact that we were just starting to feel a whole heck of a lot better. We've got vaccines. We had those Monday after Monday after Monday back in November. We've got all this vaccine news. We started to actually put out some of these vaccines as well, whether it's over in Europe or the start of it around the world. But now all of a sudden we get this, and the negativity immediately hits the markets based upon what we are seeing today. And we're down about 180, 200 early. Then we got down about 400. Right now, as I quickly refresh, down about 3.25 in this first hour of trade. So pretty good pressure. NASDAQ down about 200 points right now as indicated, and down about 150, down about 1%. Now we're down approximately 1.6% on the NASDAQ. And boy, the S&P, wow, that thing has been flying around. We were down 40, then we were down 60, then we were down 70, and now we're back down to about 60 points to the downside there. What's that happening with the volatility index? You guessed it. This thing is rocketing to the upside today. It's up 30% today. That's a pretty amazing move for the volatility index. But that's when we start to get those spikes oftentimes do come in big chunks. Today, a big chunk. We're looking at about a 6-point move to the upside. We're just underneath 28 on the volatility index. And as I said, the last week or so, we've been chopping around somewhere between 21, 23. Not too terribly long ago, we were under 20. So this is a pretty healthy move to the upside in terms of the volatility. Not feeling so good for a lot of the longs for sure in the marketplace, as they're probably feel a little bit nervous. We've been talking about this, and obviously Tom Lee has been on as well, talking about what's been going on with the markets. Still loves the markets, but expects some sort of a pullback. Well, today, I don't know if it's a monstrous pullback. I don't think you could call it that, but certainly seeing a pullback of close to 400 points to the downside. So what's getting hit hardest right now? Well, it makes sense. You got the cruise lines, they're getting hit. You've got casinos, named like Wynn, down 5%. That's getting hit. Tesla's getting hit. The interesting part is we are finally seeing a little bit of a pullback after so many up, and all these highs that we've been hitting and all the rest of it in the semiconductors. So what's pulling on the NASDAQ isn't just tech today. It's tech, it's semiconductors, it's also biotech. So the combination of those three is why we are seeing a pretty significant move, a much more bigger drop. Matter of fact, down 1.8% presently in the NASDAQ. So a pretty nice push to the downside today. And it's contributed by the addition of all of the big three that are really pushing on the markets to the downside for the NASDAQ. So that's something. You've got energy down a couple of percent. You've got healthcare down a couple of percent. We still have some great moves, however, in the financials. You take a look over at Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Capital One, Wells Fargo, Citi, Bank of America, all of those, Morgan Stanley, having a really, really nice start to the day. Now, will they start to get pulled back down with the markets? It's pretty likely that we will start to see a little bit of that. We've seen some of those gains from JP Morgan for sure pulled back, but Goldman Sachs really looks very, very strong. Nike is another area where we see some strength today. Now, when we talked about this last Friday, we had some unusual option activity from a few days before. We pulled that back up and we put that up, and what a move in Nike. Oh my goodness. After earnings, that's a big spike, and it's strange. Everybody was talking about why are the earnings there? You never really know exactly all the mechanics of why it got pushed. That's not normal for Nike to be on a Friday, but we're still getting a huge move today out of Nike, and a nice big 7% or so. I think last I looked, it was up over $147 for Nike. So big, strong, great reaction from that earnings call just last Friday. So that's why we're seeing that move today. So hit a little unusual option activity. How about Bed Bath & Beyond? It's not a name we talk about a lot. It's a name that actually pretty negative on for a long period of time. They did bring over a different management team, and with that management team, former Target, looking to do some of the changes. It looks like they're implementing some of those changes, and the stock actually has significantly turned around from where it was, and it's made a pretty nice move. And here we're seeing some unusual option activity. Stock was just underneath 19 bucks, and we saw a buyer of 10,000. Yep, 10,000 of this week. So they expire the 24th, Christmas Eve. The 19 calls, give or take, they're going for about 50 cents. There was a range somewhere between the low 40s and close to 60 cents, but call it 50 cents, pretty significant. You see 10,000 options. It does start to show up and definitely stick out. And this was a really interesting one because this is a name that you just wonder what names are going to be able to continue to produce. We've seen some great results, obviously, out of Walmart, Costco, and Target, a lot of those various names. Bed Bath Beyond, this one's, it's had some ups, it had some downs. It certainly has done much better with the new CEO, but this is a pretty interesting, unusual option that we're seeing there. So real quick, I'm going to jump over and see what questions we've got, and then unbelievable day today. And here's why. When we get through this day we're down 340 right now, down a couple of hundred on the NASDAQ, S&P down 65. We got this huge spike in the VIX. We've got a roundtable tonight that you do not want to miss. It's going to be on the Market Rebellion site. You're going to be able to check it out. It's going to be very easy for people to be able to watch. But Gene Munster is going to be back with us again. Gene's been great. Gene's a friend. Gene's one of the very best in the industry. And he's going to give us the lowdown on everything that he's seeing in terms of his world of technology and all the rest. So if you were there last time, you know that he gave you some unbelievable names to keep an eye on, many of those incredible winners. And I'm excited to hear what Gene has to say now and what he's thinking right now with Tesla and with Apple and with all of the different names that he covers. That should be really, really great. That's going to be tonight. So definitely you're going to want to see that. Somebody asking about FireEye. It seems like FireEye, here's my one issue. FireEye options hit constantly. They are absolutely aggressive. They hit constantly. Sometimes they work, sometimes not so much. And it seems like more on the not so much side of the ledger. So I still get involved. I still do oftentimes jump on it, but I don't get nearly as excited. For a while, it seemed like that was a great run. We were getting buying in there. Stock was moving to the upside. Buying, stock was moving to the upside. Rolling, we were seeing the stock move to the upside. Then it sort of stopped, and we had a lot of buying and not much results. So for right now, I've been laying back when I've seen some of the fire up. Just my opinion, but we are seeing some bullish activity in there as well. So just wanted to point that out. Thoughts on the financials? I love the financials, as you most likely know. Own JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citi. I mean, a couple of other, some regionals as well. I just think the banks are underappreciated. I also think with the implied volatilities and the ability to sell options against these, especially when the applied volatilities were higher to be able to do that, plus you've got dividend yield. I think there's a lot of combination of why the banks make a lot of sense. The balance sheets are great. Obviously, the yield curve is something everybody brings up. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But I'll tell you what, this move that we've seen, for instance, out of a JP Morgan to the upside after it had been pinned at 100 for a long period of time, pretty substantial move. And along the way, getting the dividend and creating dividends. So I think there's a lot to be said for a lot of these various names. Capital One's another one of those names that I really, really like a lot. And it's when you look at the revenue stream and where they are getting it, and you see where the credit card percentage is and so forth, you'll understand why there are certain names that I think stand out a little bit more than others. So that's that question there. Square. Been seeing activity. Every time we've seen activity, it seems like it has worked. And this is a name I really, really like. From the most recent unusual, a week or two ago, something like that, immediate reaction out of Square. Time and time again, it seems to be that way. I look for unusual, and when I find unusual and it seems to be really, really consistently right, I get a lot more comfortable about it. Square is a very expensive stock. I think oftentimes when you get those, obviously you're going to get higher premiums. So most of the time when I am positioning in a Square or any of those other names, I'm going to put that on as a spread. I'm going to buy a low call, I'm going to sell a higher call, and try to spread off some of that higher, not just implied volatility, but higher premiums at those costs. Still like Vale? Absolutely, I do like Vale. I don't think the material space is over. Obviously, they've had a great run, so should you expect pullbacks? Very much like energy. Unbelievable run, you should expect some pullbacks. The markets, unbelievable run, you should expect days like today. You don't always want them, of course, but you should expect that you are going to get, nothing ever goes up in a straight line, and you're going to get some pauses, and you're going to get some pullbacks. That makes it a much healthier move to the upside. So that's my answer. Hello, Pete. What are your thoughts on Goldman Sachs? Stock is rocking. I think Goldman Sachs is, to me, one of the better of the financials. And I said financials, not banks. Hopefully you caught that. I do think that potentially this could be a $300 stock. The one disappointment I get with Goldman Sachs is we just don't see it very often for the unusual, because as you guys know, we try to use the unusual to kind of direct us around. Doesn't mean it always happens that way, but it most often does. And we just don't see as much unusual option activity in that financial name as we do in many of the others. Hi, Pete. Are you in PayPal? I was in PayPal. I was in PayPal, out of PayPal, in PayPal, out of PayPal. I am presently out of PayPal, not for any negative reasons. I'm waiting for the next buyer to step in. I'll probably jump right back in PayPal, but right now I am not in PayPal. And the reason I sold out of that, probably the next question, is I got my rules, I got my discipline, and it hit the trigger points, and so I got out. And that's why a day later I got right back in. But that happens sometimes, and that's okay. Different strike, different month, all the rest of that. Just wanted to say hi and thanks for all your work. I appreciate you. Thank you, sir. That's Will. Thoughts on gold? Yeah, it feels like we are just on the start of seeing a little bit of activity, because we've seen some gold, we've seen some silver, we've seen some individual names, obviously the SLV the other day as well. So it feels like maybe the start, but it just started. So I'm okay being patient and wanting to sit back and see, is this something that's going to continue? Is this start got a little bit more fuel left in it? So that's that. Any thoughts on Pfizer? Pfizer reminds me a lot of Bank of America, Citi, and some of these names that just don't move a whole heck of a lot, but they've got everything going for them. Pfizer's got a decent pipeline. They've got a great management team, I think. They've got all of what you'd need, but the stock just doesn't have as great a reaction. Now, that being said, I own the stock. So you'd say, why does Pete own the stock? Because I think the pipeline is there and because I think the management team will get things going. But in the meantime, this is a stock that I've owned for multiple years, and I can sell calls against it with a high dividend yield. That ends up working out very, very well. And that's my version of the people who put their money in the bank or put their money in a CD or the rest of that. I am earning far more doing what I'm doing and with the yield. And even if the stock doesn't move, as long as it's not going down, as long as the stock is kind of hanging in there, which is basically what Pfizer has done. It's not exciting, but that's why that one's been so great for me. Any thoughts on Ford? Not really right now. We had some activity. I think I jumped on those Ford calls a while back. But no real major thoughts right now on very many of those autos. I'm short. Nicola, what is your take? I'm not a guy who's the big guy. I'm not your right guy when it comes to the shorts and all the rest of that kind of thing. When it comes to a stock, I'm either in it or I'm out of it, but I'm very rarely short it. Now, once in a while, if I want to be short something, I am not short the stock. I will buy puts, not always as a hedge. Sometimes I'll buy puts looking for some sort of downside. But oftentimes the puts that you will see are very frequently on my disclosures because of the fact that I'm trying to hedge something and protect something usually. But that wasn't the case with GE that had that great run from 30 all the way down to 6, and then it's came back. But that was just amazing rolls that whole way along for that one. I'm going to just answer one more. Somebody asked about FUBU. So this is a name that I got in and I got out because it reacted so quickly and I loved it. So I took it off. I like what they do. I think it's an interesting company. I think I had not traded it before, but there's a lot going on there. And I think that is a potentially incredibly growing industry, just like we see in DraftKings and all the rest of it. Obviously this with football outside of the United States, but I like this one. I do, but I'm not in it. I was in it for all of maybe 24 hours or something like that last week. Folks, have a great day of trading. I'm really excited for you. Even though we're down 300 plus points, that doesn't mean there's not opportunity out there. I think there is, and it's probably getting created right now. We'll all be digging through it. Check out the Market Rebellion site, and specifically, you're going to want to check it out tonight with Gene Munster, who's going to join us on the round table. Have a great day of trading.